Someone Like You by Sparkypasker. Read by Distracted by Books. Chapter 1. No, I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. Izuku sat at his desk, absent-mindedly scrolling through his favorite quirkless forum. Normally, after a bad day, speaking with others who are like him fills him with a sense of community and belonging. But not today. Today, that one sentence played on repeat, circling his mind like a demented roller coaster. The acquaintances he had met online were messaging him. Little envelopes were popping up next to the names on his friend list. Some had green dots next to them, some didn't. He had been ignoring all attempts to contact him for the last however many hours it had been since he got home. He was one of the younger members of this particular site, so he had been told by the moderator. It's not too surprising. The older outcasts would want to check in. Izuku was an active member of the forum, talking about his day or what heroes he had seen on his way home from school. He posted something nearly every day. Those who he had friended would be able to see he was online, but was not even attempting to interact with anyone. That reminded him he probably needs to change his username now. He didn't know if he would be able to even look at the computer knowing that anything he did would be associated with a name he no longer believes in. All Might Jr. has changed their username to Deku. The comments came in immediately. Big Brother 23. No, you change that back right now. That is not acceptable in this house. Freakazoid. I agree with the sentiment, Big Bro, but not in those exact words. Kid, we talked about this. You cannot give your bullies the satisfaction of thinking they won. If you start here, where will it end? No soup for you. Dude, you are like the epitome of a hero fanboy. What the hell happened to cause this? CSI guy. If I had to guess, I would say that whatever happened had less to do with Hero Society and more to do with All Might himself. Izuku contemplated if he wanted to respond. He had never told anyone here of his dream. He was unsure if anyone would be able to understand what he was feeling. Should he take the risk of being shattered by people who should be able to sympathize with him? Deku. I met All Might today. He told me I could not be a hero without a quirk. Big Brother 23. Well, he can just go screw himself then. No soup for you. No swearing around the kid. Big Brother. Fine, but I stand by it. Freakazoid. No true hero would say something like that to anyone. If you want to be a hero, you go be a hero. CSI guy. While I don't agree with saying it like that, All Might may have a point. Izuku felt his heart breaking. Big Brother 23. You should be extremely careful with what you say from now on. You are on thin frickin' ice. No soup for you. Yeah, jackass. If you continue, I will personally make sure your body is never found. Big Brother 23. You literally just told me off for swearing in front of the kid. No soup for you. Yeah? And? I'm a hypocrite, so sue me. Freakazoid. I can't express how disappointed in you I am, CSI guy. CSI guy. Now hold on a second. Before you go biting my head off, let me explain. All Might is a limelight hero and has been #1 for decades. It is highly unlikely he thinks of heroism as anything less than what he has been doing, using his overpowered quirk to fight bad guys. And because of his strength, he is probably the one that is called when there's a villain local heroes can't handle. Therefore, his idea of a hero would be someone like him. As someone who is quirkless, I can positively say that none of us in a million years would be able to perform the same feats as All Might. I'm sure you would be able to be a hero, but definitely not one like All Might. You would not be in the limelight. You would not be famous. Deku: but I don't care about being famous or being in the limelight. I just want to help people. CSI guy: then of course you can be a hero. Deku: but he also told me to be more realistic, to become a police officer or doctor or some other profession that helps people. But all I have ever dreamed about is being a hero. I don't think I would be happy being anything else. CSI guy: no, I get it. I do. Look, I work in a crime lab, but all I am allowed to do is keep inventory. I'm not allowed to touch or process evidence in any way. After all, if I were to touch it, it would no longer be admissible in court. When I was younger, all I wanted to do was be a scientist. Colleges believed that because of my quirklessness, that I wasn't smart enough to be admitted. This was the closest I could get. No soup for you. I'm not sure if I ever told you guys, but I always wanted to be a chef. I am self-taught for the most part, and even tried opening my own restaurant once. But no one wanted to eat food made by someone quirkless because, you know, it's contagious. Needless to say, we had to shut down after a few months, but I just couldn't leave food service. I love it too much. So I now clear tables. Big Brother 23. Well, I am pretty open about what I am doing from day to day. At the moment, I am jobless, but I normally just drift from one job to the next. All of them are unskilled labor positions. Freakazoid. Well, I am a NEET. I am currently mooching off my parents while searching for a job that I can actually allowed to do. I'm thinking I may actually have to settle for waste disposal. If anyone has any better ideas, hit me up. Izuku logged off the forum with an abrupt goodbye, then went to Google. He began looking for jobs that would allow quirkless to apply. CSI guy was right. Even if Izuku did become a hero, he would never be famous or wealthy. More than likely, the amount that he would be paid would be less than what he would need to survive. He would have to find a second job anyway. The results were less than encouraging. He scrolled through page after page with little to no results. He briefly thought about calling it a night when a small article at the bottom of page 75 caught his eye. He clicked on the link. It led him to an article from more than 50 years ago. A quirkless man had been killed while attempting to save a high schooler from being mugged on their way home from school. The author called the man a crime fighter. That was odd. The way it was written, it's as if that's a title. Izuku opened another window and went back to Google, typing in crime fighter and quirkless. The search brought up one result. It was from another news article. This one was about 100 years ago. That was around the time when the quirkless families in power died out. The last powerful quirkless family was very much anti-quirk. When they realized they were dying out, they did everything they could to make sure quirkless individuals would be around as long as possible. They are the only reason why children aren't immediately killed when diagnosed as quirkless. Izuku learned that in history from a teacher that did not make it a secret that he disagreed with the government, quote-unquote, bowing down to the quirkless freaks. The family, in their attempt to limit the capacity of the newly created Hero Public Safety Commission, forced the government to create the crime fighter license. For much of the history of quirks, heroes were, what is now considered, vigilantes. Once vigilantes became more common and started to actually become a public nuisance, the government declared that anyone wanting to use their quirks to fight crime must be licensed. This limited the amount of people fighting crime on the street. No one wanted to out themselves as a quirk user. They would immediately be killed by friends and family. The only people brave enough to apply for licensure were those who had strong quirks they could use to defend themselves. The quirkless families in power did not want to give that much power over to one organization without having quirkless representation, which would not be controlled by the organization in question. In other words, if there was going to be one organization to control all of the licensed quirk users, there should be a counterbalance of crime fighters not controlled by the same organization. According to what Izuku found, crime fighters are quirkless individuals who fight criminals. They are licensed not by the HPSC, but by their local police station, and the only reason they are licensed in the first place is so that villains can't come back and claim assault. Izuku's heart began to pound in excitement. These were really, truly quirkless heroes. Well, not heroes exactly. They didn't have that designation, but they were essentially heroes. He just needed to find out if that provision was ever repealed. After a little searching, he discovered a single line hidden in legal jargon that states that quirkless individuals may obtain licenses for detaining villains at their local precinct. Izuku threw his hands in the air with a smile on his face and spun in his seat. He was going to be a crime fighter. A poster above his head caught his eye. All Might smiled down at him, showing all his teeth, as if he was sneering. No, I don't think you can be a hero without a quirk. Anger surged through his body. All Might was wrong. What he said was nothing more than his opinion, and that was crap. Izuku tore the poster down the middle and ripped it up into shreds. Pieces of the poster rained around him before falling to the floor beneath his feet. He was going to be a crime fighter, and nothing was going to stop him. Chapter 2. Izuku sat down across from his mother, a plate full of fish, vegetables, and rice waiting for him. The two of them ate in silence, as is usual. When Izuku was younger, he and his mother, Inko, used to talk nearly constantly when they were in the same room. But as he grew older, his mother gradually stopped responding to what Izuku was saying. Then Izuku began to get bullied more and more at school. The first few times he was injured enough to need treatment, his mother would grab their first aid kit, drag Izuku into the bathroom, and patch him up. She taught him how to treat a bruise, how to make sure a burn leaves as little damage as possible, how to stitch together his skin, and even how to reset different joints after they became dislocated. Ingo claimed first aid was something everyone should know, whether they were the leader of a country, the number one hero, an average citizen, or a bum on the street. And she was right. It was a good skill to know. Izuku continued to assume that was the reason he never went to a doctor. His mother was a nurse, so if there was an injury that was too severe to treat at home, he was sure she would take him to the hospital. He was wrong. When he was about 10, one of his bullies took things a bit too far. A boy he didn't know the name of, but had an average quirk, the ability to create mist from his hands, pushed him into traffic. A nearby pedestrian called for an ambulance. He was taken to a hospital and treated. It just so happened to be the same hospital his mother worked at. The workers patched him up, and she took him home. Izuku didn't have any major injuries, just a concussion, a cut to his forehead, which left a scar that is now hidden in his hairline, and a broken arm. They walked into their living room. Inko spun around and backhanded him. She didn't yell. She never yells. Instead, she demanded to know how he could embarrass her. How he could make her co-workers think she is okay with wasting resources which are nearly always in short supply. Then she informed him that he would be paying her back for what she spent on the medical bill. From then on, Izuku made sure to take care of any and all injuries on his own, and he never started any conversations. His mother became Inko, never Mom. Izuku was pretty lucky that night. Inko had decided to make food for more than just herself. It happens about once a week. Any other night, Izuku has to make food on his own. Inko had mentioned in passing once that he needed to learn how to cook so he could survive on his own. At 14, Izuku was more than aware that the only reason she even kept him around anymore was to make sure her image wasn't tarnished. Nothing would sour her career more than being seen as a negligent mother. So she always made sure there was enough food in the house for 2 people and that the first aid kit was stocked. Everything else Izuku had to do on his own. At this point, Inko may as well be a roommate. You're at the end of your second year now. Have you submitted your plans for after graduation? Inko spoke into the silence. Izuku stopped eating, a small piece of broccoli held between his chopsticks. I did, he said. Well, are you going to tell me what you wrote? I said I wanted to apply for UA's hero course, but I have changed my mind. This got Inko's attention. Oh? She asked. Yeah, I'm going to be a crime fighter. Inko stared at him. She placed her chopsticks on their holder, intertwined her hands, and placed them in her lap. No, you are not going to be a crime fighter. I will support your decision to forego applying for UA, but under no circumstances are you to become a crime fighter. Yes, I am, Izuku insisted. Inko's face scrunched up in anger. No, going out and fighting villains is too dangerous for someone like you. I can do it, and I will do it. You're going to get yourself killed. Izuku raised her voice slightly, not enough to be heard by the neighbors, of course. That's what always happens. Being a crime fighter is just a way for people who are quirkless to die. They are too cowardly to do it themselves, so they have the villains do it for them. That is not my intention. I am not trying to get killed. I have always wanted to be a hero, and I'm not sure if you've checked lately, but there aren't exactly any job opportunities out there for the quirkless. Izuku's eyebrows furrowed in fury. Any jobs out there are minimum wage, unskilled, and with no opportunity for advancement. They are dead ends. I want to do something more with my life than that. I said no, Inko stated firmly, and that is final. What do I need to do to prove to you I can do it? Izuku asked. Broccoli long since dropped onto his plate and chopsticks clenched in his hand, pinching the skin of his palm together. Inko looks at Izuku doubtfully. For one, you need to get a paying job. You say that you don't want to be stuck in a dead-end job? Well, that's exactly what crime fighting is. No one ever makes enough money to do anything with. They usually die before they get that far. You need to have some sort of income. Secondly, our current budget doesn't cover what you will need to purchase before you start. Weapons, gear, an increased amount of food consumption due to the increased amount of physical activity you will be participating in. Anything above what I have been purchasing up to now, you will have to pay for yourself. And don't forget that you still owe me the money I paid for your hospital bill. If you are determined to be a crime fighter and can follow those guidelines, then sure, you can be a crime fighter. Just don't come crying back to me when you're on your deathbed. Inko picked up her utensils once more and resumed eating. For the first time in what felt like forever, Izuku smiled brightly at Inko. He unclenched his fists and finished eating, making plans in his head the entire time. First things first, he was going to have to find a job. It was obviously going to have to be part-time. He was also going to have to start working out. Why it took this long for him to realize he didn't know, but it was definitely something that should have been obvious. He was also going to have to learn how to fight. Both with and without weapons would be preferred. Villains will have their quirks, so Izuku was going to need something that could take the place of a quirk. After that, he is going to need to find a way to procure both the gear and weapons he needs. He was going to have to write this all down. Izuku stood from the table, washed and put away his dishes, then retreated to his room for the night. Izuku took a spare notebook out of his desk. He hasn't written notes at school for quite some time, so the school supplies Inko purchases for him at the beginning of each semester largely go towards Izuku's hobby of analyzing heroes. Now, don't get him wrong, Izuku does learn what the teachers are trying to teach, but considering his notebooks were constantly destroyed, he found it was easier to teach himself at home. He took tests and completed his homework, but didn't put much effort into them. The teachers would always just give him a straight B minus across the board anyway. They have so many papers to grade that it's easier for them to just give him an agreed upon, by the teachers, grade. This way, they spend less time grading papers and it doesn't bring down the school scores that are turned into the Board of Education. They consider it a win-win for everyone. They even say that they are doing him a favor, making sure he never fails any of his classes. As if it is actually fair. Izuku is certain he would hold one of the top spots in class if they graded him fairly. But, you know, the quirkless can't perform better than those with heroic quirks, aka the top of the class. Izuku sat at his desk and took a permanent marker to his notebook, naming it simply crime fighting. He opens a browser on his computer and researches meal plans to gain muscle, exercises he can do without a gym, and skills he may be able to learn at home. Oh, parkour would be good. He looks at his notebook, smile still decorating his face. He was so excited. He was finally going to be a hero.
Is that the end of